In John chapter 10, verse 11, this is what Jesus says. John chapter 10, verse 11. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. I'm the good shepherd, he says, and the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Last week we talked about this man who had been blind from birth. And Jesus healed this man. And the religious leaders of the day, they were so upset with this man that he kept claiming that God had intervened and that Jesus was used by God, that they essentially banished him from worship. They excommunicated him right out of the synagogue. This man had just received the greatest blessing, his sight. He'd never seen before, ever, and now he can see. And right on the back end of this great blessing, he receives this worst of all news. You can no longer worship. You are no longer a part of the children of God. You are no longer accepted in the synagogue or in the temple. And so Jesus does something interesting to me. It's found in John chapter 9, verse 35. This is what it says. It says, when Jesus heard what had happened, he found the man. And he asked, do you believe in the Son of Man? I love that verse. Jesus heard what had happened to this man, and what does he do? But he goes and he finds him. Now, in the rest of the text in 9 and into the beginning of chapter 10 and even on through the text we're going to look at today, Jesus is essentially talking to the man, talking to the religious leaders, and talking to all who can hear him. And essentially he's saying after he found the man, hey, I've found you. I've got a flock for you. I'm not like these false shepherds around here. I know your name, and I'm calling you to come. He says, hear my voice. Now, their voices, they're deceptive. They're going to lead you in the wrong direction. But my voice, it is the truth. So come and find salvation and shelter and hope in me. What a powerful display. Jesus is demonstrating what a true shepherd looks like. In the midst of this series, we've been trying to get closer and closer to Jesus to understand him better and better, not just in knowledge, but in life and in experience. Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd. I'm going to reach out to those who have been shunned, those who have been discarded. And I'm calling them all people who will, to come and join my flock. Jesus is proclaiming, I am the shepherd that has been prophesied about. I'm the shepherd who has come to replace the thieves and the robbers. I am the shepherd that God has prepared to come and lead his flock. In fact, it's interesting to me, but in Ezekiel chapter 34, the whole chapter essentially is about this idea, this prophecy about who Jesus is. I'm just going to read you parts of it. Ezekiel 34, 1 through 5. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Woe to you, shepherds of Israel, who only take care of yourselves. Should not shepherds take care of the flock? You eat the curds, clothe yourself with the wool, and slaughter the choice animals, but you do not take care of the flock. You have not strengthened the weak, or healed the sick, or bound up the injured. You have not brought back the strays, or searched for the lost. You have ruled them harshly and brutally, so they were scattered, because there was no shepherd. And when they were scattered, they became food for all the wild animals. Right off the bat, Ezekiel's proclaiming, false shepherds, you're not protecting the sheep. You're in it for yourself. And Jesus is proclaiming the exact same thing. You're in it for yourself. Ezekiel goes on, verses 10 through 12. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against the shepherds and will hold them accountable for my flock. I will remove them from tending the flocks so that the shepherds can no longer feed themselves. I will rescue my flock from their mouths, and it will no longer be food for them. For this is what the sovereign Lord says. I myself will search for my sheep and look after them. As a shepherd looks after his scattered flock when he is with them, so will I look after my sheep. I will rescue them from all places where they were scattered on the day of clouds and darkness. And in verse 23, kind of sums it all up with this: I will place over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he will tend them. He will tend them and be their shepherd. Now, I don't know if you realize this, but this is written hundreds of years after David is already gone. So this is a reference to the son of David. This is a reference to Jesus Christ coming and protecting and seeking and providing for his sheep. So Jesus stands up in front of these religious leaders, and at least in my opinion, they understand that he is not just saying, hey, I'm a good leader. He's saying, I am the leader. I am what was prophesied about in Ezekiel chapter 34. I am the good shepherd. I am the one that my sheep need. And all of you, not all of you, but all of the religious leaders, God is going to remove you. Because I'm the one that he's prepared to lead this flock. So with that background, Jesus comes to this man proclaiming these things. And with that background, Jesus comes to us proclaiming some powerful things. So our text today is John chapter 10, starting verse 11. I want to read to you verses 11 through 18. Here's our text. Keep in mind that Jesus is, in fact, fulfilling the prophecy that a good shepherd's coming. And this is what it says, verse 11 through 18. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I'm the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, I lay down my life for the sheep. And I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. For this reason the Father loves me, because I lay down my life that I may take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down, and I have authority to take it up again. This charge I have received from my Father. Now, this is a powerful text of Jesus describing himself as the good shepherd. And there's so many things that people look at in this text, but I want you to understand what I think is most important about this text is what Jesus repeats 5 different times. I lay down my life for my sheep. 5 times in these few verses. I lay down my life for my sheep. Jesus is making it abundantly clear, I will die for my sheep. These other leaders, they're going to run away and protect themselves when danger comes, but I protect the sheep. Now, so often we come to this text and we spend immense amounts of time trying to define and describe the sheep. You know, we spend huge amounts of time talking about how stupid sheep are. And they are stupid. And to be quite honest, me as a sheep have done some mighty stupid things. Maybe you have too. Anybody ever done a stupid thing? Anybody ever been vulnerable to false voices? Anyone ever been deceived? Anyone ever made bad choices? It's true, sheep are stupid, but we spend so much time talking about how stupid sheep are. I heard about some shepherds. They were eating breakfast outside the town of Gevis, Turkey. They were surprised when they saw one lone sheep jump off a cliff and fall to its death. Then they were stunned when the rest of nearly 1,500 sheep in the herd followed that sheep and leapt off the cliff. When it was all over, the local newspaper reported that 450 sheep had died. Now you might be thundering, why didn't the 1,500 sheep die? Well, when you got toward the back of the pack, the pie was getting so high and so fluffy, they were surviving. Think about that. That's how stupid sheep are. Woo! Hey, there goes my brother. Woo! I'm jumping off the cliff. I don't care. Hopefully you're at the back side of that, you know. Oh, this isn't too bad. That's a pretty fluffy fall right there. You know, we spend so much time talking about how stupid sheep are. And we are. But that's not the point. And sometimes we spend a huge amount of time trying to define the responsibilities of the sheep. Well, yeah, in this text, you know, it says earlier in John 10 that the sheep hear his voice. So that must mean that the sheep should understand his voice, should read his word, and all those things. And that is true. We should know God's voice. We should know Jesus' voice. We should read his text. But that's really not the point. That's not the point of this text. That's not the point of what he's trying to say. When the infamous September 11 airplane barreled into the Pentagon, Officer Isaac Hoppy was nearby, but he was outside the building. Immediately, he began helping people straggle out of the building, and in some cases, he carried them out. But Isaac wanted to do more, wearing only a short-sleeved shirt, his blue police uniform, no mask, no protective coat, not even a handkerchief. He ran back into the inky blackness of the Pentagon. Someone yelled at him, "Stop!" But he said, "We've got to get those people." Suffocating on smoke, Isaac heard the building cracking. He called out, "Is anybody in here? Is anybody here?" Wayne Sinclair and 5 co-workers were crawling through the rubble and had lost all sense of direction when they heard Isaac's voice. They cried out, and he responded, "Head toward my voice, head toward my voice." And following his voice, Sinclair and the others soon made their way out of that crumbling building. It is absolutely true. Jesus is calling us out of darkness, and we need to listen to his voice and follow. As sheep, we need to listen to him and go where he calls us to go. We need to hear the Savior's voice. But it seems to me that the focus of this text is not so much on who the sheep are and what they're supposed to do, but rather on who the shepherd is and what he will do, has done, and will continue to do. Because Jesus says, "I'm the good shepherd. I lay down my life for the sheep." In essence, Jesus says, "I love my sheep." I want you to think about that just for a moment. I love my sheep. Even when we're stupid. Even when we wander off. Even when we chase after the wrong things. Even when we listen to the wrong voices. Even when we sin. I love my sheep. Jesus' own words just a few chapters later, John 15:13. "Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends." Very next verse, by the way, he says, "You are my friends if you follow me." In Romans, Paul says, "But God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die for us while we were still sinners." And 2 verses after that, he describes us as enemies. I want you to understand that Jesus loves you. In fact, we cannot even understand the depths of that love for us. He shows us that love by dying for you and for me. In John 10:18, in our text it says, "No one takes it from me, his life, but I lay it down on my accord. I have the authority to lay it down, and I have the authority to take it up again. This charge I've received from my Father." I want you to understand that when Jesus dies for you and for me, it's not a last-ditch effort. It's not because he is unaware of some kind of enemy that's coming at him. It is him choosing to die for you and for me. He chooses to die. The Good Shepherd, he seeks us and he calls us and he knows us and he leads us. He lives with us gives us. He sees the best in us, and He brings the best to us by willingly dying for us because He loves us. Jesus says, I lay down my life for the sheep. I lay down my life for the sheep. Can you imagine what that really means? That means that when Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane and he falls down on his knees before God, 3 times, God, please take this cup from me. There's got to be some other way, God. God, I'm in agony here. I'm sweating drops of blood here. I'm grieving in my soul here. Please take this away from me. As he proclaims that prayer, he is thinking about you and me, and he says, but not my will, yours be done, God. Do you understand what that means? That means when they come and arrest him, and they flog him, and they beat him, and they spit on him, do you understand that he is thinking about you and me? Do you understand when they lay him upon the cross and they nail spikes through his hands and his feet and they lift him up so that he suffocates? That he's thinking about you and me and all of his sheep. I am the good shepherd, he says, and I will die for my sheep because I love my sheep. Now you might be wondering, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for me? I think that means that we can rest in Him. Jesus essentially says, rest in me. The Good Shepherd loves you enough to die for you, and that means that you should be able to rest in Him. Rest in Him. Johnny Miller mentioned this story. He said, when I was a teenager, I became fascinated, appalled, and grieved by the literature of the Holocaust. One scene that haunts me is a picture of Auschwitz. Above the entryway to the concentration camp were the words, Arbeit macht frei. The same thing stood above the camp at Dachau. It means work makes free. Work will liberate you and give you freedom. It was a lie. It was a false hope. The Nazis made the people believe hard work would equal liberation, but the promised liberation was horrifying suffering and even death. Arbeit macht frei. One reason that phrase haunts me, he said, is because it is also the spiritual lie of this age. It is a satanic lie. It is a religious lie. It is a false hope, an impossible dream for many people in this world. They believe their good works will be great enough to outweigh their bad works, allowing them to stand before God in eternity and say, you owe me the right to enter into your heaven. It is the hope of every false religion. He said, but it is the love of God that liberates. It is the blood of Jesus Christ that liberates. He died in my place, and I am free. So often we live our Christian walk as if we are earning God's love. The more good we do, the more He will accept us. But the truth is we can never earn His love because He has given it to us freely. In Matthew 11, 28 and 30 through 30, some of my favorite verses, Jesus says, come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. Jesus is calling for us to rest. The Good Shepherd is calling for us to rest in Him. Not on our works, not on how good we can be, but in Him and His blood shed on a cross. Probably the most well-known passage in the Bible. It speaks of the Good Shepherd. You're familiar with it. It's Psalm 23. I'm going to ask you to read it with me. Here it is, Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for Thou art with me. Thy rod and staff they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. That is Jesus. That is Jesus, our provider, our restorer, our protector, our comforter. We have all we need in this life and the next because the Good Shepherd lays down His life for His sheep. Everything that God, the shepherd, provided for David, He also provides through His Son to all of the sheep. Philip Keller, a shepherd himself, wrote a book, A Shepherd's Look at Psalm 23. And he talks about the phrase, He makes me lie down in green pastures. And this is what he writes. He says, the strange thing about sheep is that because of their makeup, it is almost impossible for them to be made to lie down unless 4 requirements are met. Owing to their timidity, they refuse to lie down unless they are free of all fear. Because of social behavior within the flock, sheep will not lie down unless they are free from friction with others of their kind. If tormented by flies or parasites, sheep will not lie down. Only when free of these pests can they relax. And lastly, sheep will not lie down as long as they feel in need of finding food. They must be free from hunger. It is significant that to be at rest, there must be a definite sense of freedom from fear, from tension, from aggravation, and from hunger. The unique aspect of this picture is that it is only the sheepman, the shepherd himself, who can provide release from these anxieties. I want you to understand that's what Jesus came. He came to provide us freedom from fear and from tension and from aggravation and from hunger. He came to feed us, to provide for us, to protect us, to shelter us. Jesus is the only one who can truly set us free. And it was by His death and His resurrection that we have become free. See, I want you to understand you can rest in that freedom. You are freed from guilt and shame. You are freed from fear and timidity. You are freed from life's pursuits and promises. You're free to rest in Him. I am the Good Shepherd. I lay down my life for my sheep. I love my sheep. They don't earn it or deserve it, but they can receive it. See, my question to you and to me this morning is, are you resting in the Lord? That's the question. If you're worried about guilt, then you're not resting in the Lord. If you're plagued by fear, then you're not resting in the Lord. If you got anxiety about what is to come, then you're not resting in the Lord. If you're worried to step out in faith, then you're not resting in the Lord. I'm the Good Shepherd, Jesus says. I lay down my life for my sheep. You and I can rest in the Lord.